question is not only are people being taken advantage of by way of initiation, but the question is also, are we attempting to take advantage by way of initiation? And both aspects need to be looked at with clarity if we're going to bring some balance back to these lineage-based systems, particularly in a time where just the word lineage is transforming. It has become something other than what it may have been 2 generations ago, 5 generations ago, 100 generations ago. Our usage and meaning of the word, our subjugation of the word, has to be examined along with our examination of the initiatory processes themselves. We are continually bombarded with negative stories about initiation, whether it's abuses through money, abuses, sexual abuses, various types of abuses that happen when people are put in a position to either leave their country, leave their comfort zone, if you will. Sometimes are put in an environment where another language is being spoken. If not, a whole nother culture is going on, particularly when you talk about going outside of the country to be initiated. So clearly we have a map, if you will, to look at in terms of how we can make some adjustments in that regard. But we also have to look at how we look at initiation. And I mean us as the individual, the client, the student, the godchildren. And what do we bring to the table when we decide to commit to these practices? And I know just within my own house, we've had more than one situation where someone committed to something on one day and then decided to do something else later. And quickly, a month later, 2 months later, they feel superior to the elders within the tradition, the elders within the path. And often it is the mixing, and if you listen back to yesterday's show, when I talk about mixing, I'm not talking about mixing Palo and Santeria. I'm talking about mixing Palo and New Age thought. I'm talking about mixing Voodoo and Christianity when I use the word mixing. There's some mix there that is used as the foundation for why they justify that behavior, that decision. I call it evangelical voodoo. And of course I'm being facetious, but I call it evangelical voodoo. It's a sense of being called to something, being born with something, being gifted with something, to an extent that you don't need initiation. You don't need to honor authority. You don't need to adhere to protocols of lineage. And these are not just about power and control, but about tradition. We have to look at how we define the word tradition. What is tradition? Tradition is how something has been done, and not just done, but done successfully, generationally, and many generations. So when we look at traditions like Lakomi, like Santeria, like Ifa, like Voodoo, where lineage is important, who you were initiated by, who your godparents were, who your elders were, where you were trained, who else was a part of that process, because we carry shared ashe, shared energy. We not only bring energy, but we share that energy, confer that energy onto implements, onto godchildren, into ceremonies. So it's a shared karmic experience. Now let's be clear, that's what real life is. It's a shared karmic experience. It is the New Age philosophy that says it's all about me. I don't have to think about you. I don't have to think about the effect my cigarette butt might have on your water. I don't have to think about the effect that spraying poison in my yard to kill off the herbs, dandelions, clovers, and what effect that might have on the fruiting, edible food in your yard, on your land. This New Age thinking doesn't require that. It doesn't require you to think about what effect my work might have on the next person. But if you are a true adherent to these traditional, particularly traditional West African religious systems, you know that's exactly what it's about. It's not only what I do to and for myself, but what I do to and for every person that I come in contact with. Whether it's in this house, in this office, in my life, in my ceremony, along my journey. So the two, the new age, it's all about me. I don't have to adhere to a godmother or a godfather, an authority. I don't have to answer to anybody but myself. I can take a little bit of what you got over here and mix a little bit of what you got over there and mix a little bit of something else here, and then at the end of the day say I don't believe in religion, and then do what the heck I want to do. That's the thought precedent of the Western world. That's what's happening today. And you cannot carry that into an indigenous frame and expect to get a balanced product moving forward. So it's critical that we look at what we're looking at carefully, articulately, in great detail, at every level, and with the intention of fulfilling spirit. Okay, caller, I see your hand raised. I'm coming to you right now. Divine All Blessed, who's calling?
Hi, my name is May. I did want to ask a question because I do agree with you in regards to initiation. But my question is, so what do you do for those who are not able to afford the full cost of initiation? What do you do with those people that will come to you or to whoever and say, I find that this is a necessary step that needs to be taken, but it's not something that's cost effective for them at that time?
That is a wonderful question, and I really would like to answer that. Now, there's several ways to look at that. Now we are talking about indigenous spiritual practice and tradition. Now, indigenously, whether that was here, whether that was in Haiti, whether that was in Africa, much of that was done through service. You moved to the compound, you moved to the village, you cooked with the other sisters, you weaved with the other people, you did the ritual and the ceremonies with the others. So you were not only gaining an apprenticeship, but you were working for the value of your initiatory process. Now, I don't know how much of the show you heard yesterday, but we briefly talked about that yesterday. We have to look at value, finance. That has changed on us. And I dare say it has changed from decade to decade. How we look at money now is not how we looked at it in the 70s, in the 80s. What we have commonly available to us now was not the same 20 years ago, 50 years ago. So the initiatory processes have got to evolve with that change. So to be more clear about your question, if a person can't make their whole initiation, then they might pay it partially. Okay, the problem with that is some people pay that partial, they get access to some of the mysteries, and then 60 days later, they had their own website up as a Ianifa. And this is a real story now. I got people that have done this on me. And then they're under such attack, and they can't understand why. And I'm trying to tell them, number one, there are people who've gone through the process that know the difference. Number two, it's a mystery system. So people are not going to come out and say, you know, sister, you need to do this, you need to do that, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. Not just as a critique. Because one, you're not going to reveal where you are in the system without revealing the mystery. So it's a catch-22. And I deal with that a lot, where people come on Facebook and want to challenge me on my wall about very specific questions. And anyone who's been through the process knows that there's certain wordage that we use, it's a language that we use. We know right off the top from the question whether you've been through the ceremony or not. So you're either trying to get me to tell you something you haven't earned, and earn is a good way to put it, whether it's financial, whether it's through service. I have given service to elders. I have drummed with masters. I have been a part of ceremonies with elders within the tradition, along with giving money, giving time, giving service. If you understand what Ebo is not just about money, but fulfilling a spiritual obligation. So sometimes that's through offering. Sometimes it is through service. Sometimes it is through a cleansing. Sometimes it is through a bembe, something vibrational. So, yeah, there's a real issue with initiation and cost. That's another concern I have, is how we look at cost and where we cross that line between gaining access to a spiritual vocation and then making a retail exchange. The two are not the same. And the line gets blurred because when someone that you don't know, I don't know where you are in the tradition, and I don't mean you, but I mean in general. I don't know where you are in the tradition, what you know, what you don't know, where you've initiated, where you haven't. And you come to me and say, well, how much does this cost and what does that involve? So I start explaining, first of all, I'm explaining ritual processes. You probably don't even understand the language. You might not speak Yoruba. You might not speak Creole. You might not have heard some of these names before. So now I have to go into detail about what that is. And some of that, if not most of that, you're supposed to gain in the actual initiation process. So trying to figure out what people really want and then providing that can be difficult for a spiritual adherent. Are you still with me, sister?
Yes, I am.
Because I know I tend to run on, so I pull me back if I get off topic. Yeah, so yeah, I appreciate your calling in with that question. That's a common question, but a very good one, and I don't think we can talk about that enough, particularly right now. Me and Awo Ifa Sakin, who has occasionally done Ifa shows with me here on Blog Talk Radio, we talk about that a lot. And in our discussion, we often use systems that are familiar to us to sort of cipher the thought process through. So we look at the church, we look at the mosque, we look at other initiatory systems as they are here in the West, whether it's sorority, fraternity, whatever that is. And then we try and make sense of what people are bringing to the table in terms of thought process, and then try and address that as early on and with as much clarity as possible, so that you don't run into issues, further down the road. many people don't know what to even expect in an initiation. And there's a way to gain access to that information, not that just through books or through the internet, but actually going to the communities, going to the priests, the priestess of the various paths, and getting access to that information. Now, some of them, for some of the reasons we just laid out, are not going to be ready to tell you that. But they might allow you into their event. They might invite you to the tambour. They might invite you to the bembe. And you will see other people there and have the opportunity to not only ask your questions, but see your questions. Be a part of the experience of your questions. Because, again, it's a mystery system. So a great deal of this is not in paper. I don't care how many books you read.
It definitely is not.
Yeah, the process is not in a book. And that's hard to explain to people who don't want to, venture out and go and be a part of the experience and at least see for themselves how it's done.